History, arguably the single most important cultural property. It is the great unifier of all societies, from classical to contemporary. It is happening all around us, every second, every minute, every hour of every day. A conspiracy of coincidence. It creates the contextual understanding of events that affects our lives. If we are vigilant enough, we can witness it happening. If we are keen enough, we can make it happen. By understanding it, we can alter the reality of the present or change the trajectory of the future. For without history, we are without purpose. We are without identity. Welcome to the gray area where we examine history in hindsight. February 11th, 1752, the Pennsylvania Hospital opened as the very first hospital in America. 1808, Judge Jesse Fell experimented by burning anthracite coal to keep his house warm. He successfully showed how clean the coal burned and how cheaply it could be used as a heating fuel. 1812, the term gerrymandering had its beginning when the governor of Massachusetts, Elbridge Gerry, signed a redistricting law that favored his party. 1929, the Lateran Treaty was signed. Italy now recognized the independence and sovereignty of Vatican City. 1937, General Motors agreed to recognize the United Automobile Workers Union, which ended the current sit-down strike against them. 1943, General Dwight David Eisenhower was selected to command the Allied armies in Europe. 1945, during World War II, the Yalta Agreement was signed by U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. 1958, Ruth Carroll Taylor was the first black woman to become a stewardess by making her initial flight. She started as a journalist. 1968, the new 20,000-seat Madison Square Garden officially opened in New York. This was the fourth garden. 1975, Margaret Thatcher became the first woman to head a major party in Britain when she was selected leader of the Conservative Party. One of her influences, none other than Margaret Sanger. 1979, 9 days after Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned to Iran after 15 years in exile. How? The power had been seized by his loyal followers, who reinstalled Khomeini. 1982, France nationalized 5 groups of major industries and 39 banks. And as a result, most of France's major industries are nationalized as well as its major banks. 1984, the 10th Space Shuttle mission returned to Earth safely. 1990, Nelson Mandela was freed after 27 years in captivity. 1993, Janet Reno was appointed to the position of Attorney General by U.S. President Clinton. She was the first female to ever hold the position. 2000, the Space Shuttle Endeavour took off. The mission was to gather information for the most detailed map of the Earth ever made. 2000, Great Britain suspended self-rule in Northern Ireland after the Irish Republican Army, otherwise known as the IRA, failed to begin decommissioning and disarmament by a February imposed deadline. 2006, in Texas, U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney shot and wounded a companion during a quail hunt. When the police arrived, they were told to come back later. 2016, it was reported that scientists had detected gravitational waves. The waves had been detected on September of 2015 by the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, otherwise known as LIGO, in Livingston, Louisiana, and Hanford, Washington. However, rewinding all the way back to 1644, the first legal protest in America, pressed by 11 blacks who petitioned for freedom in New Netherlands, today known as New York. It was the earliest anti-slavery protest comprised entirely of black men. The Council of New Netherlands freed the 11 petitioners because they had served the company 17 or 18 years and had been long since promised their freedom on the same footing as other free people in the Netherlands. However, the other several hundred or so remaining were denied their freedom and remained as slaves. You see, America has never been good at keeping her promises, and as a result, it is the burden of her citizens to force her to do so. Even if you fail, the attempt was made, but that does not mean that it's over. You must keep trying, persist, and persevere, and history will do the rest. You see, history, much like time, waits for no man. It is ultimately up to us to decide whether we choose to make it or be the reason we repeat it. However, no matter what side of it that you stand on, you can only learn from it by looking at history in hindsight.